What historic decision will Donald Trump make? How much will it anger Putin and the dictator around him? After all, he has methods of putting pressure on everyone around Putin and on the entire axis of evil, at least we hope so. My name is Iryna Uzlova and with me is Boris Pincus, an American politician on YouTube Live on the 24th. Boris, hello. I am sincerely glad to see you.
Good afternoon, dear. Glad to be on your channel and glory to Ukraine.
Glory to our heroes. Thank you for your position. Friends, thank you for being with us. Join us. Put your likes and questions, of course. Be sure to ask. I will relay them, Boris, if you have any. We will answer everything. At least we will definitely try. Well, Boris, Senator Congressman Mike McCall, a Republican from Texas, declares, better late than never, commenting on the decision of the Joe Biden administration to supply us with both anti-personnel mines and resolve the offense with long-range weapons. McCall also claims that Putin did not listen to the newly elected president. In his opinion, the conversation did take place, but Putin did not hear Trump, who warned him not to escalate the situation in Ukraine, but we see something else. The Kremlin still claims that there was no conversation, and that they allegedly do not make an aggravation either, but Putin continues to act and do everything to anger both us and the administration, apparently both current and future. McCall said it is now up to Trump's representatives and Trump himself to decide who they want to be. Winston Churchill, the hero of World War II, or Neville Chamberlain, the appeasement dictator of Germany. This is the historical choice facing Trump. Boris, in your opinion, what are the key factors influencing Trump's historic choice so that he comes up with a ready-made script at least by January 20th?
Well, let's start with the fact that Trump has no power today. It will be as early as January 20th next year. And every hour of today is important to us, not even a day. You look at what is happening in long-suffering Ukraine. Moreover, this maniac, terrorist, the aggressor continues to increase. Please note, it is constantly increasing its aggression against Ukraine, ignoring both civilians and civilian objects with infrastructure. In order to raise the stakes and, as Putin thinks, to wait for the fact that sooner or later he will be offered some kind of deal, in which he will act from those positions that will allow him to dictate the terms of this deal, and not, say, for example, Trump. But he doesn't know Trump. Does not know Trump at all. And for Putin today, the worst thing is Trump's unpredictability. Trump is silent. You will note, there are no statements from Trump's mouth. Forget about what is being said around him, or even Vance, the future vice president, or anyone else. Until Trump himself expresses his personal opinion, we cannot determine what he wants. Even when Trump says something, you also need to be careful. Why? Because Trump, a politician, says one thing, does another. This is his unpredictability, this is his main weapon, which intimidates this Putin. Therefore, it is no coincidence that he twice stressed that he is for the Democrats. He once expressed support for Biden, and just a few days before the election, before November 5th, he expressed support for Harris. And it was true. Biden's predictability is more comfortable for him. And Biden's predictability is based on tired conditions. Do not escalate, do not provoke, we are not going to fight with Russia. This is what Putin needed. And so he really hoped that Harris would win. And he will finish off America by doing whatever he wants in Ukraine until he enslaves all of Ukraine. This did not happen. Trump, a man who is the right person at the right time, in the right place. Trump is working on his strategy today. Unfortunately, The situation he is dealing with is so unstable that he has to, apparently, I have no doubt about it, constantly adjust their plans depending on the events taking place on Ukrainian soil. Constantly adjust. But at the same time, we can already say what strategy he is planning. Trump, when he enters the White House, and his strategy, most importantly, will be based on what he said at our party convention when we nominated him. And this strategy is already being voiced by his future Secretary of State Mike Rubio. The strategy says, America will always seek peace, but with a show of force. America will always seek peace and look at this world through the prism of our armed forces. This is Trump's strategy. Therefore, today he is recruiting people for his team in the most interesting way. On the one hand, these are hawks in the person of the same Marco Rubio. This is also the hawk. It is Marco Rubio, as the son of immigrants from Cuba, from the very country that is still a vassal of the same Russia, and to this day a vassal of the same Russia. It is Marco Rubio who hates dictatorial regimes, and Putin is one of them. And he will be allowed to conduct foreign policy. The second is Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor. It was, has been and will remain one of the main advisors, or rather, the most important, on national security, which will guide Trump to demonstrate force when necessary. And the third is Pete Hegseth, young, capable, educated, past wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan, although inexperienced in foreign policy. Very pro-Ukrainian, very pro-Israel. Was hired solely to restore order in the Pentagon and help Trump get rid of those who represented the so-called deep state, who have been sabotaging for years everything that needs to be done to protect our national interests beyond America's borders. This was back in Trump's first term from 2016 to 2020. On the one hand, I called it Yastabov, but he also took a couple of pigeons. Why? Because he must have quite a wide range in the arsenal of those. You know, in the implementation of those plans, which he owes simply as the leader. Largest economy in the world, as the leader of the country with the most powerful armed forces, and to be able to use force where necessary, and where necessary. Levers of the economy. That's why he took very famous people to his team. This is Elon Musk, which will influence those countries which are in dire need of economic ties with America. One of these countries is China. That's the first thing. And Elon Musk has large investments in this country. And the second person is Howard Lutnick, who has been appointed Secretary of Commerce. He is from Wall Street, one of the billionaires, who perfectly understands the situation in those countries, who may through economic channels. Follow. But our country, beyond America, and in political matters. This Lutnick, moreover, also has a lot of investments in the Chinese economy. Thus, it is not by chance that I began to talk about China. If one of weapons Trump is, the ultimatum will be presented to the same Putin. This is one of my assumptions. How? Imagine that Trump dials this Putin's number, and he says, "I give you time for the withdrawal of your troops from the territory of Ukraine abroad in 1991. Of course, he will immediately receive a refusal, there is no doubt about it. But then Trump will most likely have no choice but to respond. I quote, "This future is most likely a quote. I will then give Zelensky everything he asks for, and even more." This is one of the options. There is another option, this is a multi-move. Even if suddenly there will be some kind of freeze, which is insisted, for example, not only the Democrats, but also part of the Republican Party. I have no doubt that this will not happen without the consent of the same Zelensky. Even if this suddenly happens, I will tell you more. A number of European leaders are also insisting on this. The same Scholz, for example, and, I am sure, Macron will also go for it. These are weather vanes. So, even if this is the place, it does not mean that Trump will give up Ukraine. This will never happen. Even if there is a freeze, it will be an intermediate step towards achieving the goal. The goal is the expulsion of the barbarian abroad in 1991. This is the second option. And the third option that I associate with the presence of two doves in Trump's team, which I call Elon Musk and Howard Lutnick. It is economic pressure on China. It is China that is Putin's main oxygen today in the war he is waging against Ukraine. It is China that is the powerful support enjoyed by North Korea, which has become an accomplice to the war in Ukraine. It is China that supports Iran. The same Iran that to this day, being in close ties with Russia, is also an accomplice to the war in Ukraine. Thus, Trump has an agenda, most likely. I even have this information from Trump's inner circle that by making contact with Xi Jinping, Trump will be able to convincingly. It is by pressing on the calluses of this Xi Jinping, which are his sore points. I mean, in an economic sense, to make Xi Jinping follow. In his own words, which say that the borders of any state, universally recognized by the world community, are unshakable. These are the words of Xi Jinping. And this directly relates to Ukraine. We are talking about the borders of 1991. This is the first, and second, words of the same Xi Jinping, which are addressed to Putin when he said that the use of non-conventional weapons is unacceptable. This is very important. And today, when Putin himself is already openly, he himself threatens not just Ukraine, he threatens America itself. With the use of this, you see, nuclear weapons. Then, listen, where next? What else to expect? What else needs to happen in the world for Putin to do this? You tell me. This is a very serious question. Therefore, Trump today has the high need to involve this issue and resolve this issue. This is priority number one. In these two directions, I think, Trump is working. And we will not hear from Trump directly what he thinks he is planning until January 20th next year. Firstly, apparently, he does not yet have a final plan on how to act, although there is a skeleton. But in the light of these rapidly changing events, both in Ukraine and in the Middle East, he does not yet have the opportunity. To the end of this strategy, it will undoubtedly change every day, every minute until January 20th. Dictators, first of all Putin, are in a hurry, as I said, to come ever to peace negotiations with the same, say, Trump, from high positions, with high stakes. Trump is in a hurry, too. He has reasons to be in a hurry. Firstly, he knows perfectly well what is happening on the long-suffering Ukrainian land. He is informed, he monitors this. That's the first thing, and secondly, he doesn't have much time. This is, first of all, his deadline, 4 years. And second, a lot of his plans, decisions that must be approved by Congress, are likely to be effective or likely to be passed by Congress only in the period from 2025 to 2026. This is exactly the time when the Republicans will still have majorities in the lower and upper chambers. And in 2026 we will have midterm elections. Then, most likely, composition. Congressmen in the lower house may change with a high probability not in favor of the Republicans. And then, in the remaining 2 years, Trump has a very low probability implementation of the proposals and decisions that it will make after 2026. Therefore, Trump is in a hurry too. But keep in mind, in the background, global challenges. Ukraine, Middle East, Africa, Latin America. The priority is Ukraine. This is the most important thing today. Therefore, on the one hand, force, a demonstration of force in the face of this Putin. And secondly, attracting one of the, here are the main sources. This one. This support for Putin, this is China. Involving China. Moreover, Trump has amazing opportunities to force Xi Jinping to adopt Trump's plan, strategic plan. This is the situation today. I'm not talking about what's going on within our party, of course, and even here's a little example for you. I was very happy that an anti-Ukrainian, such as Matt Gaetz, kicked out of Congress, is no longer there. Before confirming the rest of the candidates in the Senate, I really hope that such an odious Tulsi Gabbard will also be thrown out. Gabbard will also be thrown out. Although, I will tell you honestly, although she will be, if she is suddenly approved by the Director of America's intelligence services, its influence on Ukraine will not be so significant because she would be in a purely administrative position. And reports for Trump will be put on the table by the director of the CIA, on the one hand, and on the other hand, Trump has a habit of working directly with the chairman. Separate units, and Tulsi Gabbard will have 17 of them. So, even I'm just saying just in case that if for some reason Tulsa Gabbard is approved, then there is no need to fall into despondency. I don't think it's going to have such a strong impact on America's attitude towards Ukraine, especially since we have in Congress. There are still great friends of Ukraine. Loyal friends. You have already named one of them. Mike McCall, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. There is also Mike Rogers, a great friend of Ukraine, chairman of the Armaments Committee. And, of course, Mike Thorner, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. This is very important. And even if Tulsi Gabbard is confirmed, she will report to Mike Thorner. This is very important, so in this regard, there is nothing to worry about. But I still hope that it will not be approved. That's exactly what these three Mikes are working with senators to make it clear that she doesn't belong there. She needs to be removed. Let's see what happens, we'll see.
T-shirts and Michaels and marquees, we all look like this, that they will keep Mark's support for Ukraine. Boris, indeed, we have understood, there are various scenarios, everyone is in a hurry, but it seems that Putin is just not in time. And at the same time, not only the issue of Ukraine, but also the issue of oil and the economy can become the stone that will finish off, or the stones that will finish off Russia, Iran, China, and all these friends. And the principle of the baby drill seems to be implemented from the first days of Trump. Reuters writes that Trump is preparing to reform the U.S. energy market and also seeks to increase land sales for oil and gas production, focusing on areas with high potential. Taras Zahorodny, our political strategist, who from the very beginning, a very long time ago, for about the last year, probably always said, one of the few, that Trump's victory will not turn into any disaster for Ukraine, but for Russia it can rather be the opposite. And so Zagorodny says that Trump will definitely lift all restrictions on oil and gas exports from the United States and Canada, and in fact, in such conditions, Russia and Iran will be forced to eat their oil and sniff gas, since the need for their energy resources will be significantly reduced. And to what extent can this factor also turn the tide in geopolitics, including around Russia?
Well, look, let's not go far. Let's take the same experience of Trump in the first cadence. It was Trump who criticized Nord Stream 2. It was Trump who justified his decision, criticizing Nord Stream 2 by saying that petrodollars are Putin's oxygen. It was Trump who did everything possible to turn our country America from an importer into an exporter of energy resources. That's why he revived the so-called Keystone Pipeline. This is an oil pipeline from Canada to Texas. It was Trump who used or resumed the cracking method of oil and gas, which ensured that we were already an exporter of energy resources. And then he told the Europeans, listen, stop feeding Putin petrodollars, buying his energy and at the same time asking me help for your defense industry. It's not fair. Do you want to get rid of Putin? Give up its energy carriers. Let him, as you know, look for his reserves, and we will see who else will support him. In other words, Trump has tremendous opportunities today. As I have already said, he had experience. It was then, in the first cadence, that he achieved that the price per barrel was reduced from $120 to $40. To do this, he became very close friends with the King of Saudi Arabia and his son, Prince Salman. It was then that he influenced OPEC through Saudi Arabia, which helped to achieve prices $40 per barrel. This was Trump's merit. Therefore, today he will certainly follow the same path. In other words, do you know what Trump's goal is? To help Russia. Fridge beat this TV. This TV. And this will lead to this. When Putin will not receive money from its energy resources. And I will give you an example. Europe, hypocritical. by imposing sanctions on Putin. Continues to this day to buy energy from the same Russia. I'll give you an example. Last year alone, Europe bought, that is, it gave it to Putin, more than $2 billion. It would seem that this is not so much, but nevertheless it is enough for Putin to feed or pay the same North Koreans. They are now talking about the Houthis. He is going to bring Yemenis and others to him. That is, if you dig deeper, you can dig up a lot of what Europeans do underground. Saying one thing in public, but in fact another. This is very serious. That's why Trump doesn't like, this kind of political correctness. And just on Sunday, Mike Rutte, the new NATO Secretary General, visited him at Mar-a-Lago. He left it very inspired, satisfied. And to such an extent that he directly said that we, Europeans, must do more. This was Mike Rutte's main resume after meeting with Trump. That is, Trump showed him on my fingers what we were doing. We are to ensure the security of Europe, and what the Europeans themselves are doing. Michael Rutte must have been ashamed to hear this, and he probably admitted it. Therefore, Trump will make reforms, global reforms, of all international institutions, starting with NATO itself. It will be followed by the European Union, very important. I am not talking about this corrupt United Nations, this is the subject of a separate conversation. He will engage in the corruption of all the leaders of these organizations, I mean, first of all, the United Nations and the World Health Organization subordinate to it, UNESCO and many others. Who live on our money? There, 27%. From 3.4 billion. We pay the official budget of the UN, taxpayers. The next to contribute is China, only 16%, and we 27%. Just imagine, I am not talking about our billionaires, who separately still contribute money to certain NATO projects. This is also money, which are used for corrupt action. Individual organizations subordinate to the UN. Trump knows all this, and he will certainly do it. In the meantime, of course, we need to resolve the issue of the war in Ukraine at all costs. And this is the fact that today Putin is teasing Trump. And in the very telephone conversation that you have already mentioned. As the Washington Post wrote, Trump warned him, don't escalate, don't escalate. And yet, Putin's response was, please, the same ballistic missile that he threw at the Dnieper. Now look what happens now. After all, Putin did not limit himself to this. He showed on his television channels a naked Melania, the future lady, and just a couple of days ago Trump himself. That is, he teased him. But Trump does not forgive such things. He is very vindictive, and we will witness how Trump will deal with Putin. And very soon.
And we will be very happy to watch this picture. Not even a documentary, but a real nightmare and horror for Putin. The United States takes seriously Russia's threats to strike a new missile defense base in the Polish city of Redzikowo. This is what White House advisor John Kirby says in the current administration. I am commenting on the threats that Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Zakharova blurted out the other day. But why, I believe, will Russia not risk hitting US targets in Europe? After all, this is a declaration of war against America.
You know, we have talked many times on different broadcasts, this boasting, this is a sign of weakness. The one he wants, he will do without ads. He doesn't need to announce it. It's, this same madman shouting, oh, hold me, or I'll hit him, something like that. Well, it's you. Well, does he take Americans for idiots? We all know this. All this is known to Trump's entourage, and not only, and Biden too. That is, we have surveillance over all this, and there are channels, by the way, connecting the White House with Putin's entourage, through which it is reported that we know, we are following, we are hearing. And any of your movements in one direction or another will be met adequately or even ahead of schedule. Most likely, it will be so. Therefore, what Putin himself and his people are saying today suggests that they are doing very badly. Putin today says this as a death convulsion. I'll do this, I'll do that, today I have one ballistic missile, tomorrow the second will fly, there is some kind of a Reshnik. In short, the forest and the gardens. If you go through the forest yourself, you understand, so it will be soon, undoubtedly, everything is going to this. It's just that the whole question is, when this end will come and at what cost. The great Ukrainian people, this is the whole problem. Therefore, we must hurry. We are in no less hurry. Putin, whom I often mention. Putin was the first to recall this from his childhood. When he had rats in his hallway, you see, and he fought them. And here was the last rat, cornered by him with nothing else to do. How to go ahead. You know, to attack, to go on the attack. And goes all in. This suggests that he is doing badly, very badly. In the West they know this, and were waiting any minute. Action. And the other good news is that Biden began to cooperate with Trump. Especially this 2-hour meeting, it was very significant. They are both broke up, in a good mood, and there is information about that Biden is constantly in touch with Trump. He coordinates his actions, coordinating them with Trump. Why? Because Biden, despite the fact that he leaves a terrible legacy behind him, he wants at least something, go down in history as a positive president. And for this, he wants to slam the door. Yes, in such a way as to help Ukraine in some way, which has been asking for help from the first day of the war. And now Biden suddenly, I am sure, having agreed on this with the same Trump, decided to supply of these very ATACMS with a long range, and even permission for their use on the territory of Russia itself. This is a positive thing, but this is not enough, I think. Biden must do something else. Necessarily, not without the consent of the same Trump. And it will be a must. Why? Because Biden is confident that what he is doing today, increasing aid to Ukraine, will be continued by Trump after January 20th. And, nevertheless, it will go down in history as Biden, who was the founder of the decision to help Ukraine with offensive weapons. At least these ones. This is important for the same Biden. But I will have to remind you of one more good news. Why Biden is disposed towards Trump today. The fact is that the Democrats themselves today are defaming Biden, accusing him of that Harris's defeat was precisely thanks to the fact that Biden did not dare to announce that he will not run for a second term much earlier. For, as Pelosi says, and says to her, the boss of these Democrats, Obama, if Biden had announced it much earlier, then Harris would have had more time to engage in election affairs and attract more supporters to their camp. That's how they interpret it. And even today, they demand that he announce his resignation today. And for the rest of the time, Harris would have been president. The goal is to on the Republicans, okay, and do everything possible to ensure that Biden was punished for the fact that it was he who contributed to the fact that the Democrats lost on November 5th. These are dunces. They do not understand that the American people were not guided by then today are motivated by these stooges, the would-be leaders of the Democrats. But the standard of living that they have today in America, high crime, high prices for essential goods, illegal immigration, and much more, and even the two wars that we have today under Biden. One is in the center of Europe, this is Ukraine, and the second is the Middle East. Long-suffering Israelis are still fighting for their survival. It is thanks to Biden. These were the reasons why our people came and voted for Trump. This is what the Democrats do not want to understand, but Trump, who today has a huge responsibility. We hope very much and believe in it, that he would make the right decision and would never give up an inch of Ukraine's land. And here is the same Mike McCall, with whom we began our conversation. One of those on whom Trump relies is our hope. This gives us faith that Trump will not let Ukraine down.
Boris, let's really hope and consider all the scenarios. Of course, we will also prepare for them. Thank you very much for today's interview. Thank you for your analysis. Thank you for taking the time. See you soon. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much. We will win. Never lose heart. There is no other way.
The only way to victory, Boris. Thank you very much for making efforts to do this. Thank you. All the best. Goodbye.
Thank you. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. Boris Pincus, American politician. Friends, thank you for being with us. Almost 3,000 people worked live on YouTube 24. Together with me, Iryna Uzlova and Boris Pincus. Please subscribe to our YouTube. Leave your comments. Take care of yourself. Believe in the armed forces of Ukraine. See you and win.